Folks, we welcome in CBS Sports, NFL, and college hoops leading voice, Spero Dedes. Spero, how's life on the West Coast? How are you?
We're hanging in. We're just kind of rolling with the punches like everyone else. Hunkered down at the house. Try not to get fat. Try not to drink too much wine, and stay in shape. But all things considered, we're hanging in. Everyone's healthy and okay. So thank God for that.
I wanted to have you on the show, Spero, because to me, you were kind of like the LeBron James of sports broadcasting because you
Oh,
were a
please.
phenom at such a very, very young age. And I look back on your career and I think of the national exposure already at the age of 24 doing the Olympics. Just for you now that you've been able to progress, of course, with CBS and do so many NFL games and just amazing coverage of March Madness. For you, what has this experience been like? Do you look back and pinch yourself now, all these years later?
Well, first of all, I mean you're too kind with that analogy, but I've had such a charmed life in my career so far, and to have some of the opportunities I've had, to call NBA finals and work for the Lakers and work for the Knicks, which literally was my dream job. Dreaming of one day sitting in Marv or Mike Breen's seat at the Garden, and to then have that opportunity. I've lived like 10 broadcasting lives with all the luck and the good fortune that I've had. So I try to remind myself of that. I think this, everything we're going through now is a good opportunity for all of us to kind of, appreciate where we are in life, no matter what level, and really kind of focus on what's important. Family, doing something you love, for those of us that are fortunate to do that, and just having a greater appreciation for life in general.
So you hit the ground running coming right out of Fordham in terms of calling games, and then like you said, I think the big break has got to be working with the Lakers in 2005. That experience must have been amazing. I mean, you're only 25 years old and you're around such great players like Kobe Bryant.
I'll never forget walking onto the team plane for my first Lakers road trip. We were going to San Antonio, November of 2005, and stepping onto the plane. First person I see to my left is Kobe. First person to my right I see is Phil Jackson. And I could just remember like almost having a panic attack. I had to pinch myself literally, like, where am I? A couple of months ago, I was living with my parents in Paramus, New Jersey, and suddenly I'm, the radio voice of this iconic franchise. And it was the first of many of those kind of surreal moments, and six of the greatest years of my life, not just work-wise, but to be there, to live in a new city, such an amazing part of the country, amazing, amazing, and hopefully the good memories and good fortune will continue.
Now, Mike Breen, another Fordham and WFUV alum, was extremely emotional, of course, on the MSG broadcast following the passing of Kobe Bryant. I'm sure that those feelings very much the same for you. 2020 has not been a good year for the world, let alone the sports world. How has this emotion been for you thinking back about the late, great Kobe Bryant?
Yeah, it still doesn't seem real, to be honest with you. I've thought about that morning, when we all saw the news, and it's kind of like everyone's, of our modern generation, like the JFK moment. Like, I don't think any of us will forget where we were when we found out. And for those of us who were fortunate enough to be around him and to get to know him personally, it's funny with Kobe. He was one way as a player, driven, kind of moody, to be honest with you. There were some days you knew not to approach him, but to see kind of the guy and the man that he became in his post-playing career, that's what I think made it even more difficult. And he seemed to be so content to finally get past his playing career and get to a point where he was able to finally devote himself to his family, his wife, and his four daughters. Just soul crushing, and obviously the seven others, excuse me, whose lives were lost. The more we got to know who they were as people, it was a tragedy and is a tragedy on so many levels.
Talk about two iconic franchises too for you at that point in your life, because you get a chance to work with the Lakers and kind of follow in the footsteps of Chick Hearn, and then back in New York at the place that in the place that you want to be, working with the Knicks. What was that experience like?
It was interesting to go from the Lakers, iconic franchise at a championship level, and then join the Knicks. Granted, the history, we know about Madison Square Garden, but a franchise that was really, really struggling to find themselves. And then suddenly this kid, Jeremy Lin, comes out of complete obscurity. I mean, we didn't know much about him, certainly, when he arrived. And all of a sudden, he becomes the prince of the city overnight. And for me, Bobby, growing up in northern New Jersey, I was such a diehard Knick fan. I remember what it was like, in the Patrick Ewing days and the Oak and the Starks and Riley, what it was like to walk into the Garden when they were a perennial championship contending team. The energy and the noise, like such a unique sound in that building that is incomparable. We've been to every arena in the league, lucky enough to have called games in every arena. Nothing has ever compared to that. And when Linsanity was happening, it was just so cool to get a little taste of what it was like in the 90s when the team was so great. And it was just amazing to see the city get swept up in it, and to be there and have a front row seat next to Mike Breen, who you mentioned, who's one of my all-time heroes, was just one of those great moments.
I know it wasn't an easy decision for you, having known you now as a friend, to leave the Knicks in 2011, but you move on to CBS, and again, just surrounded by so many greats in the world of broadcasting, to basically be, following Vern Lundquist at CBS.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty cool place to be. How has it been working there, and how much you love really working on the NFL and March Madness, especially? I know college basketball is one of your loves.
It's funny. Every summer we gather with all the CBS announcers to kind of have our broadcast seminars. We get ready for the NFL season, and you look around the room, and there's Kevin Harlan. There's Jim Nantz, Ian Eagle, who's another hero of mine and has been a mentor over the years. Greg Gumbel. A who's who, literally like 5 Hall of Fame broadcasters. Brad Nessler. The list just goes on and on. So to know that I'm part of that group, in some small way, as kind of the low man on the totem pole, is one of the great honors. And now to be able to have been there full time since 14, I've had a chance to build a relationship with some of these guys that I grew up watching, like I'm sure you did. And it's just really the part of the neatness and the uniqueness of being in this business now for, my God, going on 23, 24 years.
Another great broadcaster I would love to hear more about from you, since you are his very last pupil, is the late great Marty Glickman. He started at FUV, and he's had, it had the impact on people like Bob Papa, and then of course yourself before he passed away in 2001.
He's on the Mount Rushmore of the all-time really titans of the industry. Was basically Marv Albert, before Marv became who he was. And so to have Marty come in and do those workshops every Wednesday, up in the 3rd floor of Keating Hall, was for us, it was unbelievable, and Marty was the first person who pulled me aside and basically told me that, I think that you really have a chance to make it in this business. And it was the first kind of shot of confidence that I had at that stage of my career. We'd all put our tape in one at a time, and he'd listen to it in front of the whole group, and he'd let you have it, and to the point where, it may have hurt you initially, but it really made you work at your craft and understand where you had to improve and get better.
Can you see yourself working as long as Vin Scully in the business, Spero?
I would love it. He's to consider how lucid Vin still was, at the age of 80 plus. Just a testament to who he is and how, the all-time greatest sports broadcaster, I think, no matter what the sport. I don't think that's pretty, even disputable at this point. But, my statistician with the Lakers, a man by the name of Doug Mann, was Vin Scully's stat man for a long time, over 20 years doing Dodgers TV. And when I got the Lakers job, he facilitated the meeting. So he invited me to go to Dodger Stadium and to visit with Vin in the pregame booth before the game. And of course, I'm thinking, Vin's getting ready for a broadcast. They're going to just kind of move me in and out. It'll be a quick handshake and off I'll go. Vin sat me down, put his hand on my shoulder, proceeded to tell me his entire story of what it was like to move from Brooklyn to LA way back in the 50s, gave me advice on, where I should live in the city, things to look out for. I walked out of there. I was so blown away, Bobby, by who he was as a person, and to take that time to spend with me. The reason why Vin Scully is so great is not just because he's an iconic broadcaster. He's an even better person. And I think it was another lesson learned for me of how you treat people, no matter what level you're at in this business, and, generally how it should be in life.
Well, Spero, I can't wait to see you at an NFL stadium or back doing some college basketball, and I'll always dress up whenever you're around, so you don't have to worry about that.
You look good. You look good, Bob. It's good to see your face.
So do you.
This is fun. Always good to talk to you.